Listen to the rules and procedures that will follow for tonight's meeting.
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Town of Babylon Zoning Board of Appeals. The following is the procedure that will be followed tonight. The matters will be called in the order they appear on the calendar, with adjourned matters being called at the end of the regularly scheduled matters. Matters cannot be heard prior to their published scheduled time. When your matter is called, please submit the affidavit of posting to the secretary and proceed to the podium and give your name and address. The chairperson will then swear you in and read into the record information we have from your application, comments from various town departments, and any correspondence received on your application. The chairperson will then ask you to make whatever presentation you wish to make to the board. After you have made your presentation, the board will ask whatever questions the board deems appropriate, and then we will ask for comments from the public. If you wish to speak for or against an application, we ask that you wait until you're acknowledged. Come forward, give us your name and address, tell us where your property is in relation to the property that's in question tonight, and then please direct your comments to the board, not the applicant or the applicant's representative. We have to keep a record, and we cannot do that if there are people talking over each other or cross conversations. If someone has spoken for or against an application, and they have said exactly the same thing that you wish to say, it will have the same force and effect in the record if you give your name and address, are sworn in, and say that you join in those comments. If you have anything additional to say, please don't hesitate to do so, but keep in mind that you will be given only one opportunity to speak. After the public has spoken, the board may ask the applicant to come back to answer any questions that may have come up as a result of the public comments, or for the applicant to summarize. When the applicant comes back to answer any additional questions, if that happens, that does not start a second round of public comments. Once the matter has been heard, various things may occur. The board may decide the application immediately. It may reserve decision. If the board reserves decision, that does not mean the matter is approved or denied. It just means that the board needs more time to decide, may want to go out and look at the site again, or might want to review the documents and testimony further before making a decision. In either event, the applicant will receive the board's decision in writing shortly after the board makes its decision. If the application is approved, that does not mean that you can then go ahead and start construction or whatever it is that you requested from the board. You will have to wait for the building permit to be obtained from the building department before your go-ahead. On some occasions, the matter may be continued for another night. If it is continued, in most cases it will be for the submission of documents, a new survey, new plans, or something of that nature. If that's the case, no one needs to come back on the new date. The documents will be submitted and no further testimony will be taken. On rare occasions, a matter may be continued for future testimony. If that's the case, then people would have to come back to testify. If matters are adjourned at an open meeting on the scheduled date of hearing, no further notice need be given unless specifically required by the board on the date the adjournment is granted. 3 rules that may affect your ability to proceed tonight. 1. If the sign was not posted for 10 days, we cannot hold the hearing tonight. 2. If you commence this proceeding while you own the property, but no longer own the property, and you are here now to continue with the application, you will need either the written consent of the new owner or the new owner to be present for the hearing. This situation could come about if you sold your house or building, money was held in escrow at closing for a certificate of occupancy or permit, and you're here tonight to clear that up. Lastly, if your application is a commercial application, and it's other than a renewal, and there is more than one tenant in the building, then you need your landlord to be here. Is there any applicant that has any difficulty with those situations and would need an adjournment tonight?
Is there anyone that would need an adjournment? Please rise and join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we begin, there is one adjournment that was on our adjourned calendar. It's application 25053. Property is located in Farmingdale on Gaza Boulevard, Hub Allen. Is there anybody here on that application? That's being adjourned to July the 17th, 2025. First application tonight is application, no, it's, yeah, we just had this whole thing. Oh, I'm sorry. We just had this whole thing. First application tonight is application 25062, property located in Deer Park, 31 Nantucket Lane. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Renato Jedrich. It's 31 Nantucket Lane, Deer Park, New York.
And do you affirm to tell the truth?
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. For the record, we have a Planning Division memo dated May 7th, 2025, environmental control memo dated May 13th, 2025. If approved, this application will not result in significant impact. A survey by Barrett, Banucci, and Van Weel dated November 17th, 2023, tax map acting as an area map, and...
Chairman, there's 9 photographs.
Okay. What would you like to tell us about the application?
Sure, I'm looking for a variance. Basically, had the backyard pavers made into a bigger section than I guess was approved or is granted by the town.
Okay.
And I have pictures here for the sign, and
If you'd like to submit them, we'll put them into the record. Okay, turn the hearing over to Mr. Montiglio.
Good evening, how are you?
good, how are you, sir?
I did pass the property, looks really nice, well-maintained, it has some nice value to the neighborhood, it looks good. When was the patio and outdoor kitchen installed?
It was completed end of June in '23.
Was there a permit taken out on it?
No, there wasn't.
Is there a reason why?
Just didn't take one out. I didn't think we needed one at that point with the amount of space that was needed.
All right, I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
So what brings you here tonight? Just curious.
Just want to get it approved and settled and
Okay.
make sure my kids don't have any issues when I pass.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board?
You have plumbing?
Plumbing, no.
Yeah.
No,
There's no plumbing?
no, there's no plumbing.
Okay. What exactly is it? Is it just a,
It's just a kitchen with a barbecue, 2 refrigerators, and and
sink?
storage, no sink, storage cabinet.
electric?
Lights, yes, we have lights.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And electricity for the refrigerators, of course, but, yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Would anyone like to be heard on this application? For the record, there are none.
I have no objections, I'd like to approve it. Application 25-062.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Next application is application 25061B, Desmond DeSosa, property located in Wyandanch.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Darrell J. Conway, 57 West Main Street, Babylon, New York.
For the record, we have a planning division memo dated May 7, 2025, environmental control memo dated May 14, 2025. If we were to approve this application, it would need a negative declaration. A survey by John Ambruzzo dated December 21st, 2024. Okay, so we got, all right, the same one. That shows the vacant lot, and then there's the one with the house on it, the existing lot. Same date, same architect, and I think we had an overall on this, yes. We have an overall on this also by John Ambruzzo, and also dated December 21st, 2024. Tax map acting as an area map, and
Chairman, there's 4 photographs.
Would you like to tell us about the application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Desmond D'Souza, 28 West Cherry Street in Hicksville. The site is known as 74 Arlington Avenue and 76 Arlington Avenue in Wyandanch. Suffolk County Tax Map is District 100, Section 28, Block 2, lots 23 and 24. It is zoned C residence. The application before the board seeks a variance for permission to diminish a front yard setback on an existing dwelling from 30 feet to 25.7 feet. This is all on Lot 2. The second request is permission to diminish a west side lot line from existing garage from 6 feet to 2.3 feet. This is somewhat an unusual application because we are dealing with a structure that already has a CO. The commissioner's memo describes the location properly, or not properly, but appropriately. There is an existing one-story dwelling built in 1982. I've looked in some records. I think it might have been built prior to 1982, but the CO was in 1982. There were 2 building permits issued for the construction of the building, and that's why I say I'm somewhat confused. The building permits were issued in 1944, but the CO was not issued until 1982. The building permits and the CO authorize the construction of a one-story building and a garage, and therefore they are deemed to be in conformance with the town code and the town requirements, and they do not require a variance. I offer the building permits, the CO, and then a final survey dated in 1962, and that's why I'm somewhat confused about the date of when the actual construction occurred, even though the survey, even though the CO was issued in 1982. The lot size itself is 10,000 square feet, 100 by 100. Lot number, then that's lot 2. That's the only lot that's before this board, but we did file an application to keep it together for lot number 1, which is a 6,000 square foot lot. As it mentioned in the memo, the commissioner's memo, what we're trying to do is strictly have a lot line adjustment. We're moving a 10,000 square foot lot to an 8,000 and making a 6,000 into an 8,000. So lot 1 is receiving the 2,000, lot 2 is giving the 2,000. They're all obviously above the 7,500 square foot requirement of the C zone. In the past, when I say in the past, I'm dating myself, but I'm talking 15, 20 years ago, it would have been done by a planning department application, and it would have gone right through with a lot line adjustment. But now, that is not the case. That's not the procedure. The lot line adjustment is under the jurisdiction of the planning board, which, once we hopefully get past you, we then go to the planning board. But it is my position, and I have been consistent with the commissioner and the planner, Ms. Riley, that I do not believe that changing a side yard, moving 20 feet over, has any effect on the approved front yard setback, which has been given a CO back in 1982. The fact is that that building has been CO'd by the town. But what they're saying is that since your setback in 1982, which was proper under a statute that we have in the code, I don't want to bore you with it, but they're saying that since you're moving a lot line, you must now adhere to the proper 30-foot setback. Once you get a CO, you're proper. You are certified. But I'm not here to debate that. I don't want to take. Hopefully, you'll get out of here quickly. But the request for the garage is even more bizarre. because they're now putting in the description, diminished distance to the west side of the lot line from 6 feet to 2.3 on the garage. We already have a building permit and we already have a CO for the garage. You can't go back. Now, I did do some research. That statute, the ordinance, 213-101G, the distance was changed back in 1988 and 1997. And that's why the garage was built in accordance with then existing ordinances of 2 feet. So, but again, it's de minimis. I don't want to take your time to discuss this stuff. I'm the only one that finds it interesting. The real reason that we're here and why it's important is that the coming before this board provides the board with jurisdiction to impose covenants and restrictions. Normally, if I walk in with a CO for a building and I do a lot line adjustment, the planning department cannot impose CNRs, and the building department can't impose CNRs. These CNRs, you have to understand, are beyond the usual, or these CNRs are in excess of what the building code requires, such as owner-occupied. We don't have a town code requirement that a building be owner-occupied, a residence. They originate from the zoning board and the planning board. And I understand the other thing being no accessory apartments. Again, I understand why we have those CNRs from the departments, but those are imposed because we're here. If I went to the building department and had a separate freestanding 8,000 square foot lot and wanted to build a home, they could not tell me that it had to be owner occupied or no accessory apartment. Nevertheless, the real issue, again, I don't want to take your time, is that we reviewed the CNRs and my client has only one objection. So I don't want to take a half an hour going over each one. I could go over each one and let you know how each one is not in the town code, but we're not going to do that. My client is willing to agree to the covenants and restrictions as recited in the memo and the conditions, except for two. One is no further expansion of the dwelling. It's my understanding that that is going to be omitted. Yes? It's amended. Okay, so we're... Okay, great. So then that brings us down to the brass tacks. No owner-occupied use, or I should say, the CNR is requesting owner-occupied use only, is demanding owner-occupied use only. That restriction is arbitrary, unnecessary, and unreasonable in this situation. I understand we have standard, I've been here often enough to see these things every night for substandard lots, for unusual situations. All of everything on that property meets or exceeds the code. To impose an owner-occupied requirement which is not mandated or required by the town code is unreasonable. It does not, being owner-occupied, in fact, this is a little bit unusual. Being owner-occupied means that once I get my CO, I don't have to, besides growing high grass, I don't have to listen to the town again. In this situation, if you eliminate that, and we're not saying that it's going to be it's not going to be owner-occupied, but if it is a rental property, guess what? The town has further jurisdiction for the entire time through the rental review board. So the town will now be able to come in and inspect it, make certain that it's single family, because if you don't have that, guess what? I get a CO for the house, and unless we have a violation, the town will never come back in. So with that, it is actually better to have, in this situation, a non-owner occupied parcel. Furthermore, there's no evidence that a non-owner occupied house has any more detrimental, is detrimental to the neighborhood. There's no empirical evidence of that at all. The second thing is we believe that it's unreasonable in restricting this applicant, who again has a standard and more than a standard size lot, because he now cannot market the sale of the house to the whole retail or the whole community. In other words, he now cannot sell it to an investor. But what makes it even more confusing, this requirement that it be owner-occupied is in direct contradiction to the development of downtown Wyandanch. Unfortunately, if we could draw that out from that lot, and you go a half a mile north, I'm next to the Wyandanch train station. All of downtown, the transit hub, has been developed in accordance with an idea that we have apartments, that we have rental units. But my house, 1,000 feet away from the train station, shouldn't be rented. That just runs contrary to what this town has developed in their plan. In fact, if you can't see it here, but if you could, this is an old photograph. If you go down the street, all those homes are destroyed. I have on the straight path, and it comes down Grand, I have 2 5-story rental apartment buildings right next to us. The house is literally half a mile from the train station. This is built in conformance with the purpose and the design of the town of Babylon and its transit hub design for Wyandanch. So that's why I say to you, just this one little thing, owner-occupied, we're agreeing to everything else. We just want us to be able to do the same things that all of our neighbors are doing. All of Albany's is doing it, 5 stories of it. There's no reason why that anybody can, unless you have testimony, that having a rental house, unless you have testimony saying that that would be detrimental to the community, I don't see why we should have to agree to that. And unfortunately, my client will not agree to that. As I said before, otherwise, we're in total agreement with everything on this memo, the amended memo. And I have any questions, I'd be more than willing to.
Yeah, my question really is what are we planning to do with the other lots?
Well, at 8,000, right now, they don't know. It has to be in conformance. It has to be in conformance with the code, the C residence code.
Just a question, this photo's from April, why is it cleared?
I'm sorry?
This photo is from April of this year. Why is that lot cleared? Like, what do you have plans for that? I mean,
It was a lot of debris on it. It was a lot of, we can't build, I'll give you the assurance, we will not build without any proper town documents. We
Permit taken out for this?
For the removal of vegetation? No, I'm not necessarily certain that we need a permit for removal of vegetation. Demolition, yes, but vegetation, I don't think we want to.
That's a backhoe? Is that for sewage?
Excavator.
Yeah.
Yes, it has. I offer anybody to go down there. There's no if you're worried about foundations or anything like that, there's nothing, no activity.
I'm not worried about it. My question is, what's your plans? And it seems like you have a plan, but you don't want to share it with us, and that's...
They don't know the plan. They don't know the plan. But whatever plan is, it has to go into conformance with the subdivision application before the planning board. And again, that's going to be an 8,000 square foot lot.
Is there any equipment sitting on that lot today, or is it?
No, it's been removed. In fact, I think I have pictures of it. Now, I was by there, taking a photograph of the sign. It's gone.
With respect, I was aware of your conversation by email with Ms. Riley that you objected to the language of covenant number 8. There were a number of communications, and every attempt was made to modify or remove the language that you found objectionable.
Correct. Because of a decision made this morning.
After the communication with Ms. Riley and the commissioner that you were willing to modify language in number 8?
No. Our decision on owner-occupied was made about 7 o'clock this morning. I got the email about 8:15. And I did tell my client, hey, that I made the email effort back on Wednesday. Today's Thursday, so Wednesday. And I said, I don't think it's an unreasonable position. And the commissioner came back and agreed with that. But no, we had not formulated a position on the owner-occupied at that point.
So you would agree that every accommodation was made to try to address your issues, but you are now raising this at this hearing for the first time? And is it the testimony of you on behalf of your client that they are not willing to accept that covenant if it is imposed by this board?
That is correct.
Okay, so noted. Thank you. Would you also agree, sir, that your client is a developer known for building multiple family homes? He is not an individual, it is a developer who often builds spec homes for resale, correct?
Oh, well, he's a developer, sure, but not multiple family homes, single-family homes.
But again, a developer known in the commercial industry as one who builds, creates, and then resells homes to the open market.
That's correct. There's nothing wrong with that.
So you are aware, and as is the client, that all other applications for new construction always have those covenants restrictions imposed.
I believe I was on the record saying I understand it's the cookie cutter covenants and restrictions that I've been seeing here for more than 20 years. But as in anything, the record starts tonight and stays open until it's closed. So
And could we finally just agree that we are not just coming in here on a conforming lot? We are coming in on one lot that we are now looking to create two. And that is why before this board, they have the option to now impose reasonable covenants and restrictions that have a rational nexus to that request.
I agree with that characterization. I'm sorry. I agree with that characterization. Your opinion as to whether it's reasonable can differ from my opinion as to its reasonableness as to only one, whether this lot needs to have an owner-occupied restriction. Whether I've just laid out my opinion of why it's not reasonable. And I understand the town's position as well. And respect it.
So right now, there's, if I went up there, there's no machine on the property, there's no nothing, you just cleared vegetation.
Vacant.
All right, any other questions from the board? Would anyone like to be heard on this application? The record there on, we're going to close.
Waiting for Suffolk County Planning,
Okay.
and I just need an amendment just for the language on the description, that it just read on lot 2.
On this lot, oh, yeah. Okay, I make a motion to amend application 25061B to eliminate the covenant number 8.
No, just
Adding to the.
What am I doing? Oh, all in connection, I'm sorry. Adding to it, all in connection with the proposed subdivision of 2 lots into 2 conforming lots to legally maintain an existing single-family dwelling and detached garage.
Second.
On lot 2.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, never mind. Yeah, now we can close, okay. We're going to close the hearing, we're going to reserve decision, we're going to be keeping the record open for Suffolk County Planning memo.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Next application is application 25064 of 859 Sunrise Highway, DIA LLC, property located in West Babylon. You're waiting for me. Name and address for the record, please.
Certainly.
Allison Lapointe with the firm Sir Tillman Ballin Adler Hyman, offices at 100 Motor Parkway, Hopog, New York, 11788.
Do you affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
For the record, we have a Planning Division memo dated May 8, 2025. Environmental Control memo dated May 13, 2025. If you were to approve this application, it would require a negative declaration. A survey by Elizabeth McQuilkin dated November 10th, 2023. Tax map acting as an area map. And
Chairman, there's 4 photographs and a site plan by Charles Lembo, and I could not find a date.
okay. What would you like to tell us about the application?
Certainly. I'm here today on behalf of 859 Sunrise Auto DIA LLC before you requesting a special exception permit for the sale of used vehicles as well as outdoor storages of vehicles. Submitted to the board are the affidavit of posting, which we received recognition of receipt earlier this week. I've also submitted a number of images of the site. Those images were taken today, as well as a conceptual plan for a handicap ramp. This site originally received site plan approval in 2016, resolution number 2016-071. The previous owner of the property was then granted the relief sought herein in 2017. The previous owner did some of the work, but did not complete the work. They then got a renewal of that special exception in 2018. Then there was a 5-year lapse, and just prior to selling the property to my client, they got, once again, another approval. My client then purchased the property last winter and obtained a 1-year extension of the special exception permit last year, which just expired, I believe, 2 weeks ago. In terms of reviewing the staff memorandum, I wanted to go through much of the site work that has occurred since my client has taken over the property. All signage as required has been installed. Parking and handicap parking spaces have all been striped. The planting of 20 leyland cypresses and 9 street trees, as well as the replacement of any vegetation that had not survived from the original owner's installation. Fire lane striping was completed. We engaged Bowler Engineering to produce a revised plan eliminating the retaining wall along the rear of the property that was shown on the original plan, and that was as per conferences with James Harkins here from the town. The installation of irrigation for all of the vegetation on site. We obtained the fire underwriter certificate and renewed the building permit. I met with James Harkin at the site this past fall to go over what was required under the 2016 plan and to see how far the previous owner had gotten, as well as how far we had gotten, what was remaining. In terms of the retaining wall, there was originally a retaining wall required around the back corner of the property that abuts the town land. Between the time of the original application in 2016 and coming back to the board, the town actually made some improvements on their property and then put in a retaining wall of their own. James agreed that because the retaining wall was already installed in the neighboring property, it was no longer necessary or possible to install one on ours, and said to revise the plans to show that simply as curbing, which you do have before you right now. He also raised the issue of the curb cut as installed by the previous owner was not installed in the location that was shown on the 2016 site plan. So again, through engaging Bowler Engineering, they show where that is now located. The curb cut in question is the one on Harvard Avenue. It was actually supposed to be installed further north than it is shown at present, but rather the previous owner had made that a little bit closer to the intersection with Sunrise Highway. And we also discussed in excess, though thankfully I really did appreciate, he's been very, very helpful to work with, what we're going to do about the handicap ramp. The original approval in 2016 shows the handicap ramp encroaching in the DOT right-of-way along Sunrise Highway Service Road. So there are 5 entrances to this relatively small building. There are 2 entrances that are along Sunrise Highway Service Road. The western entrance, which has 2 steps up, and you can see them in the images I circulated and listed, is the location where the handicap ramp was approved. Again, it encroaches pretty significantly into the DOT right-of-way and onto the DOT sidewalk. So there will be some pretty large issues with, and please keep in mind, this is the previous owner. The image you're looking at right now is from 2019 or 2021. It predates our ownership. There are no cars on our sidewalks. But yes, you're showing what is my left side of the screen, the two-step up to the door. That is the location of the proposed handicap ramp in 2016. Getting that approved by DOT is problematic. Also, the handicap space is located on the rear of the building, requiring someone with differing physical abilities to traverse the parking lot and then traverse the DOT right-of-way across a busy road to then enter the building was also somewhat problematic. So we, again, engaged Bowler Engineering, and we looked at all 5 of the entrances to this building. Every single entrance, because of the grade change, either has a step up or a step down. And where there is a flush entrance, there are additional stairs internally to be able to reach the other floors. We looked at internal modifications that could be done to the property to meet the building to do this, as well as the external. And the best plan that we have reached at this point is the plan that is before you this evening. Now, again, the approval of the location of a handicap ramp is certainly not before the board today, but as the staff rightly pointed out, that is one of the larger, in fact, I think the more significant item outstanding from the original site plan, never mind the moral and ethical need to make sure that everyone has access to the building. It is really the largest outstanding item from that original site plan approval. I have shown that plan to James Harkins. He had no issue with it as long as the engineering team confirms that it is all code compliant. So again, the outstanding work, we have the one larger matter of the handicap access to the building, which I've just described. We require New York State DOT sign-off only for existing conditions. It is my understanding that as long as we're eliminating the handicap ramp on the DOT right-of-way, that it's simply the conditions that have been here at the site since its original approval and CO. It was recently brought to our attention that the sign on the west side of the building from the previous owner that reads used cars did not have a permit. My client did receive a permit for the sign across the front that no longer reads Island Auto, but reads their current business name. But yes, the used car sign on that side of the building does not have a permit. My staff has pulled together the application to submit that and get that approved. And then yes, and the curb cut on Harvard also does, because of its changed location, does require Town of Babylon Highway Department sign off. Again, in speaking with James Harkins, he said he had had previous conversations with Highway, and it's just a matter of making sure the plans are finalized, getting them to Highway, and getting them to sign off. And so that's where we are in terms of finalizing the site work from the original 2016 approval that my clients purchased a year ago. And your question will be, well, what is the delay? The delay is largely in trying to figure out this DOT/handicap access issue.
Thank you. Turn the hearing over to Mr. Shepherd.
How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Wonderful presentation. When will it be finished?
Well, I did not bring my crystal ball with me today, but I do believe we're going to need to circle, even though James had indicated that he was comfortable with the changing of the location of the handicap ramp through the building permit process. I think I'd like to circle back and just double check with the planning department and make sure that everything is copacetic to make sure that works with them. So again, we have 1 or 2 things to finish on the Bowler plans, and then we're going to circle back to planning and sit down and make sure that, 1, we've got everything, and 2, that our alternate location, which if you see on the plan, it's not the prettiest location to put it. It is a little intrusive into the parking lot, but we've exhausted every other option at this point.
All right, because we've had issues with wasn't your ownership, but with the neighbors, with the property behind it, going back, it got to be almost 10 years now, and you're operating without a CO, so
That's understood. Yes.
you need a final inspection.
Yes, so again, that's part of, once we sit down with planning, again, we've compiled all the other documentations for the final inspection. That's part of why I invited James Harkins out to the site. We stood out it was a very warm day, stood outside over the plans for about an hour and a half and went through each item to make sure that we understood everything and we could move forward with it. He added a few more items that we had not been aware of. He was incredibly helpful. And it's just a matter of slogging through. It's a little bit more difficult when you're assuming a site plan than when you're involved in the design of it. You don't know what was there before. You don't know what they did or didn't do. We had to do some investigations into the drainage that was installed. We didn't know if that was properly done or not. So it's been a bit of a lift getting fully up to speed and then trying to figure out this handicap accessibility issue.
Okay, so I'll say it again. It's been close to a decade. Can we get it down to a year, months? How?
I would certainly, well under a year. No, that's not a question.
No,
yeah.
I'm being facetious. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
it's been since, I think since 2015, which would make it 10 years.
Yes.
That there's been some kind of issue with this property, with previous
Understood.
owners, the neighbors, and on and on and on. So
Yes.
Can
So
you
my
give it-
client's been in ownership for a year.
guesstimate, that's what I'm looking for.
Without how the DOT may react to if we have to go back to the old plan, I'd say 6 months for everything internally here through the town. You guys are really quick. But if the DOT gives us a hiccup, then that timeline could be.
Understood.
We're looking to wrap it up and clean it up, but we're getting there.
I don't have any further questions, Mr. Chairman. at this time.
Any other questions from the board?
I just have one, Mr. Chairman. I see on the photograph of today that no cars were parked there. I live within a mile of there, and a majority of the time, there are definitely cars parked in front of the building, obstructing the pedestrian crosswalk.
On the roadway in front of the building?
Correct.
In the last year?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll certainly speak to my client about that.
I'm going to add to some comments on this application. Has your client received any shipment of cars since he's been operating there?
I think cars, I don't know, so cars come in and out. There are sales and yeah, cars come and go as they have been operating for a year.
Sitting on this board, we've heard the residents complain about the unloading and loading of, vehicles and how that was a problem for them. I mean, does your client have a different action plan on how he's going to?
Have we received any, are we aware of any complaints that have happened in the last year?
On this property, with the previous owners, it was a nightmare with loading and unloading vehicles. We just, yeah, the neighbors were not.
So it's my understanding that the owners of this dealership also have 15 other locations across Long Island. I can't speak directly to how they're operating, but in just general conversations with my client in the past, a lot of it comes to other locations and then staff run them back and forth. Again, I can look into whether or not there have been any complaints about how that's been operating in the last year and see if there has been any change. And if you require some additional information on how they're doing that, I'll certainly
Just
share
like
that
I
with the
said,
board.
just have your client be mindful of the neighbors when it comes to that, because it has been an issue with the previous owners in the past.
That's more than reasonable, certainly.
Okay, we're going to close the hearing. Oh, would anyone like to be heard on this application? We still have people. For the record, there are none. So we're going to close the hearing. We're going to reserve decision. We're going to keep the record open so that you can get back to us on Mr. Rigney's concerns and also whether the handicap entrances, how you're going to work that out and stuff like that, right? And Suffolk County planning, which, if that'll come to us, that's not a big deal.
Okay, so with the closing of the hearing and reserving decision, that kicks into play the 62-day timeline for a decision. Looking to council, how do you want to handle that?
The record open, so we're allowing more testimony to come in.
Brilliant, and I
To move tonight anyway, as we're still waiting for them.
certainly just wanted to make sure we didn't need to sign any agreements extending timelines.
6 months, right?
Let's go.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Okay. The next application is... Okay. Oh, there's nobody here on this, don't worry. Application 25059 of Gabriella Smalls and Kenneth Coleman, property located in West Babylon. Name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Michelle DeBrita with Goodwill Expediting, 126 Norwalk Avenue, Medford, New York, 11763.
And you affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Okay. For the record, we have a Planning Division memo dated April 30th, 2025, environmental control memo dated May 6, 2025. If approved, this application will not result in significant impacts. A survey by Jason Lettingham dated 11/11/24, tax map acting as an area map, and,
Chairman, there's 3 photographs.
okay, would you like to tell us about the application?
First, thank you very much. Ms. Smalls, my client, is looking to seek permission to go from your 20% lot occupancy to 42.34%, also legalizing the concrete patio that also needs a variance for the rear yard setback from 2 feet to 1.4 feet. She installed the basketball hoop with the concrete patio in about 2012, unbeknownst to the rear yard setback that was required, and is now seeking the further relief of the 20% to install an in-ground pool for her family.
Okay, I'll turn the hearing over to Mr. Shepherd.
Evening, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, you said it was built in 2012?
Correct.
Okay. And she didn't get any, file any paperwork or permits or nothing?
She did not.
Any concerns from the neighbors?
No, in fact, it's funny, in talking with her, she says it's really been a neighborhood, like hangout for the kids and
They're
stuff.
not here, so I understand. I don't think I have any further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from the board? Would anyone like to be heard on this application? For the record, there are none. I'm good.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve application 25-059.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too.
Well.
Live stream.